I promised in the last episode, I will be picking up Diablo 2 topic once again and following the video essay rule set. Last time I discussed some of my first gaming memories. Following that trope, I will be dissecting Diablo 2 as a piece of art, a game, and a nostalgia prism crystal. I just want to quickly preface this video. Despite that I worked hard on the visuals, you are more than welcome to use me as a background noise. I'd probably do the same if I were you. Also, please remember this is a nostalgic retrospective and everything you'll see on the screen is by no means a min-maxing adventure, so take a chill pill, kick back and relax. As much as I would love to tell you that Diablo 2 is a direct sequel to Diablo 1, I just can't, but more on that later. The first game was first and foremost a hack and slash with some lore and story sprinkled on top of it. It is a hella good game, I give it that. But the lore was almost non-existent, at least in-game. Usage of the word almost is deliberate, as the lore is actually there. Just not in the game itself, at least the majority of the story can be digested via the manual that was part of the original box. Some of you may still remember when the games came in so-called big boxes. I tried to do some research on the dimensions to give you at least some sense of how big they were, but the only data I could dig up is the weird American units. So following that logic, I'd say the box is like 120th of the American football pitch. Now to the topic of essay itself. Diablo 2 hit you with the lore not only by the manual, but with the cinematics as well. Their length was about 4 times of those from Diablo 1. If you haven't played the game yet, I would suggest you to skip to the timestamp on the screen right now. Even though I don't really consider Diablo 2 a direct sequel, every bit I research points to me being wrong, as the story picks up right after the first game. So for the sake of the cohesiveness of the essay, I will sum up the story as it is and not as I think it should be. In the opening scene of Diablo 2, the narrator of the cutscenes is the mortal that slew Diablo himself in the first game, and placed the soulstone containing the soul of Diablo in his own head. Unfortunately, the mortal hero has been corrupted by the soul of Diablo and loses total control, unleashing the demons and hell itself upon the tavern. The narrator is the sole survivor of the massacre and decides to follow the mortal hero on their journey. The rest of the story is revealed via the act system of the game. Your adventure begins in the encampment as one of the 5 or 7 characters, depending if you have the expansion pack or not. But considering that the most convenient way of playing for Diablo right now is the remastered, which is called Resurrected, you will have them all unlocked. Amazon, the master of bows and javelins. Assassin, the master of traps, subterfuge and toxins. Necromancer, master of raising dead and magic of death. Barbarian, which is pretty self-explanatory. Paladin, considered in early days as a support character, heavily armored wielder of auras and flying hammers. Sorceress, master of elements and magic. Druid, thrift shop necromancer. My go-to character has always been in a barbarian due to nostalgia. As I told you before, I watched my father playing Barb and just sweeping through the maps on the baseline difficulty level. But we'll go through the game together as the Paladin, because I haven't really played him like ever. When I was younger, I didn't really pay attention to the story. After all, it wasn't a bedtime story I used to listen to. Thankfully, the game has been released in the times when developers and publishers care more about the product and the consumer than the revenue itself. That's why the game has been localized, at least for my country, and it had tremendous dubbing, both base game and the expansion. So once I grew up a little, I was able to enjoy the full story. You gotta remember that it was early 2000s, so foreign language education in Eastern Europe still was more focused towards our neighbors' languages than the English. First things first, we gotta get our first quest from your neighborhood's friendly high priestess Akara. She is somewhat leader of the camp you spawn in, run by Sisterhood of Sightless Eye, who were driven out from the keep that you'll visit later on. The guards of the camp are not the only sisters that we're going to encounter on our way through the act, though they are the only friendly ones. Anyway, after talking to Akara, we are asked to clear out a nearby cave that is being infected with hellspawns that may launch an attack on the camp. After clearing the filth out of the cave, you are rewarded with a skill point and no direction for the second quest. I always thought that this is kind of bad, that you don't get directed to the second quest, but then I reflected that devs were just respecting your intellect, and the quest giver for the second assignment is nearby anyway. But then again, I was young and stupid back then, I didn't care about the story anyway. After dealing with Akara, you are most likely interested in what rest of the so-called town has to offer. When we are exploring, we stumble onto Kashia, the field captain of the order. She asks us to deal with her closest friend that has been corrupted and raises dead from the burial grounds. This is the time when the game trickles, new mechanics and tidbits of the lore. Not only we're introduced to the waypoint, which are basically Freetown portal scrolls, but we also meet other rogues. One of them guards the passage to the new area and informs us to take care as the evil lies ahead. Like, no shit, the whole war went to hell, or rather the hell went to the world? Whatever. But we meet the other type of rogues too, the unfriendly and unalived. This, in retrospect, is a cool way of showing that no one in the world is safe. The haven you started in is full of rogues who are supposed to be bastion against the evils outside, yet they're not immune to the corruption of Diablo. Again, this quest is part of the soft hand-holding of the bygone days, as killing the Blood Raven grants you the access to the mercenaries, an NPC who will follow you around and defend you. We are being gifted one of the rogues who you could see guarding the camp, but we're gonna be getting rid of her once we're reaching Act 2 or even 3. After dealing with Cassia's errands, we were asked to seek out Deckard motherfucking Cain, the recurring character from the first game. Not only we are about to meet the old man in the robe who would like you to stay a while and listen, but we are about to visit the town of Tristram itself. I only remember Tristram as my father told me about it during his first playthrough, so I wouldn't be surprised if you don't know what the hell I'm yapping about. Entering Tristram, we are immediately hit with the catchy tune, the same tune that you could have heard while playing the first game. The difference is that the town is almost leveled and infested with monsters. In the distance you see a familiar face though, the famous blacksmith Griswold that repaired the gear for you in the first installment. Unfortunately, he has been slain and resurrected as a mindless corpse, trying to kill you just like the other monsters. After dealing with the filth in the town, you arrive at the center of it. In shock of what have happened to the safe haven you once rested in, you notice a cage with an old man trapped inside it. You rush to help him out of it and notice that it's Deckard himself. So you free your Identify Items service provider and tell him to take refuge at the rogue camp. From now on you can identify your items for free by talking to the Deckard, which I will be diligently using instead of Identification Tom, which I have bought from Akara a while ago. Next quest, unlike other quests in this act, is not triggered by talking to the NPC. Instead you can get the quest The Forgotten Tower by interacting with a moldy tome found in Stonyfield. Funnily enough, the quest is not required to progress through the story, though it is recommended as the Blood Countess drops powerful runes to enhance your gear later in the game. While doing research for this video I stumbled on a bit of trivia on Diablo wiki pages. Most likely the character has been inspired by Elizabeth Báthory, who was a niece of Stefan Báthory, a former ruler of Poland. She, like the character in game, had a nickname Bloody Countess as she murdered multiple virgin girls during her times and bathed in their blood to retain her youth. As a fun fact, this quest is so-called run killer in the speedrunning community. The runes that the Countess drops are randomly generated. Speedrunners need specific runes to drop, and repeating the Forgotten Tower one too many times is just not worth continuing the run. As mentioned before, the whole quest is optional. To push the story further you need to talk to Charcy, the camp's blacksmith. She asks you to retrieve Horadric Molus, which could be very helpful for sisters in their fight against evil. I didn't mention it earlier, but every NPC that you can talk to has few stages of a dialogue. One of them is called Early Return, meaning talking to them for the second time about your quest before completing it. Most of the NPCs will mock you for not completing the quest. Anyway, to retrieve the blacksmith hammer, we need to seek out an abandoned monastery where the sisters once lived. Now the monastery is filled to the brim with hellspawns, which, as you may have already guessed, we need to clear out. Upon arrival we are greeted with vast assortment of demons, fallen skeletons and other hellspawns. But as a cherry on top we are faced with a great demon called the Smith. Technically we don't even need to fight him, as we can just yoink the hammer from its stand and run away, but come on, XP is XP. To be honest, the character of the Smith is severely underbaked by Blizzard. If you look him up on the wiki, it is said that after routing the sisters from their monastery, he has been tasked guarding the Molus. The next passage is about him getting manhandled by a group of heroes. The end. Lol. As a reward for this quest, Charcy will imbue one piece of non-magical item with random effects, making it magical. After returning the hammer, we are eligible for the last quest of the act, Sisters to the Slaughter. This sets up the precedence for the whole game, as every last quest of the act is about facing the boss. Deckard asks us to reclaim the Sisters' monastery, where Andariel, the Maiden of Anguish, has set up her lair. We, as the brave heroes, will need to venture down the multiple floors of monastery's catacombs. The catacombs themselves are just randomly generated mazes up until level 4, where Andariel has decided to set up her throne room. Arriving at the deepest level, a horrific image unveils before your own eyes. Wide and deep pits filled to the brim with blood of the sisters whose corpses are scattered around the room, impaled on the wooden poles. The revenge lies just outside the wooden doors to your right. During my first playthroughs, I remember that Andariel was finicky with her poison damage. Despite this, I did not stock up on antidotes. Lots of guides online tell you to either stock up on healing potions or antidotes to survive the whole fight, but to be completely honest, she was a cakewalk. Yes, I know I'm playing on a normal difficulty level, but I almost one-shot her. With Andariel's defeat, the first act is finally completed. While our hero is being transported to the Eastlands by the caravan, we are treated with animated cutscene. When I was younger, I always thought that this depicts us on the long and exhausting journey to the new act. Only recently I understood that this is the mortal hero from the Diablo 1 and Marius from the initial cutscene. We arrive at the city of Ludgolain, which is refreshing change as we finally not in the encampment surrounded by carts and tents. Only gripe that I have with the town is that the distances between quest givers and merchants are a tad too big. Though I think it's because of the era of TikTok, the attention span of people is not what it used to be. Though the city at the first glance looks peaceful, the evil lies beneath it. Our first quest is a noble one for sure. We are tasked with exacting the revenge for the slayed husband and son of Atma, the local tavern keeper. She tells us about the horrific flesh-eating monster Radament which has nested in sewers below the city. It wouldn't be a 2000s game without a sewer level, would it? So down we go, hacking and slashing through endless hordes of toxic zombies, fire-wielding skeletons and unnaturally tall constructs with 4 arms. We finally arrive at the lair of the monster. Upon claiming our kill, Radament is being struck down with holy light that kills the remaining opponents around. For our trouble, we rewarded with a skill book and Horadric staff, which will play a big part in this act. After returning to Atma, we are told that she will spread a good word among merchants of Ludgolain, which gameplay-wise gives us discounted prices at each vendor, a neat way to tie in gameplay mechanics with storytelling. The stuff that we have picked up from the chest in Radament's lair triggers second quest, this act elegantly named the Horadric Staff. This is basically a glorified fetch quest in which you have to visit 3 locations. Halls of the Dead for Horadric Cube, which is 4-slot item that cannot be opened and has 12 slots inside. On top of that, you will use it later on to craft better gems. Maggot Lair for the Staff of Kings, and Claw Viper Temple for Amulet of the Viper. After acquiring those items, you can combine them in Horadric Cube into Horadric Staff, which is needed to progress further in the story. While fetching the items, we triggered third quest organically. While entering the Lost City in search of the Amulet of the Viper, sudden sun eclipse occurs. To be honest, if this quest didn't exist, the game wouldn't change at all, as getting the last item for the Horadric Staff basically completes this quest and the sun comes back. To contrast the previous lackluster task, the next quest is one of the most memorable in the entirety of Diablo 2, at least in my opinion. I consider Arcane Sanctuary, as it is called, the most unique and beautiful location in the game. I remember how my jaw dropped once I saw my father entering the location. The galaxies in the background, the pristine concrete floor that is supported by Gothic pillars. This location just screams atmosphere. On top of that, the location highly contrasts what we've seen so far, the grim and gloomy environment of the first act, and enclosed tight spaces full of maggots, toxins and swarms of flies are the polar opposite of where we are now. Regarding the tight spaces of Act 2, I think it has to be my biggest gripe with this part of the game. There is almost no middle ground here, either you run around huge open spaces trickled with small oases, or you just crawl in tight corridors or insect layers. Although I don't like the decision here, I can see how that blends into narration of far, hardly habitable East. We visit the Sanctuary to obtain Horizon's journal. Horizon is a great mage of the Vizjerei clan who constructed the whole place. Moreover, he kept the tabs on the outside world, thus he knows which one of the Tal Rasha tombs is the real one. For those lore-hungry, Tal Rasha is one of the Horadric mages that became body host for Baal, and was entombed to keep the world safe from him. After defeating the mage, we complete 2 tasks, the Summoner, which is the shortest quest in game, that we have triggered by encountering Horizon, and the Arcane Sanctuary, though the latter is not in a completed state as it displays symbol of the correct Tal Rasha's tomb. We got lucky and got a croissant? After collecting the journal, a special red portal opens to the Canyon of the Magi, where we need to locate the correct tomb. A croissant? Our ultimate goal is to destroy Baal, who's trapped in the tomb before Diablo frees him. Unfortunately, our path is blocked by powerful demon Duriel, half maggot, half Hydralisk from StarCraft. He holds us for long enough to Diablo free his brother Baal from the eternal prison. Though technically Baal was freed by the sole survivor from the opening cutscene Marius. What a dumbass.
Don't do it! Fool! You have just ensured the doom of this world. You cannot even begin to imagine what you've set in motion this day. Go to the Temple of Light in the eastern city of Karas. There you will find the gate to hell opened before you. You must find the courage to step through that gate, Marius. Take the stone you hold to the Hellforge, where it will be destroyed. Now run. Take the stone and run.
A quick preface to Act 3. My opinion on this one is heavily biased, as I wholeheartedly hate this part of the game. The long stretches of the land, easy to overlook quests, and narrow passages are just not my cup of tea. On top of that, the footage you will see was captured during my livestream on Twitch, where I was super under the weather due to Blizzard servers shitting themselves like crazy. Lots of rubber banding, hits not being registered, and overall delay has not helped to sway my opinion on this act to the light side. But to the point, after cleansing the lands of the east, we sail into the Diablo's version of Amazon jungle. Overall idea of the swampy river banks with Aztec flavor seem appealing, but in the long run tends to be exhausting. I will tackle more of this in the later parts of the video. We arrive at the docks of Kurast, where we are greeted by Hratli and get a lore dump. Long story short, the region has been infested with Mephisto's evil in the countryside, and the bigger towns, including capital city of Kurast, in which we reside at the moment, has been overtaken by a religious group called Children of Zakarum. This act is a bit different quest-wise, as we are not given any by the NPCs minding their own business in the town. The wiki states that the Act 3 is huge and filled with many challenges, and what a challenge exploring is. The layout of the maps is linear but two-pronged, meaning that if you stick to the only one bank of the river you will easily overlook important locations. For comparison, during my stream, Act 2 took me around 1 to 1.5 hours. Act 3, due to its layout and me being a complete idiot, took me over 3 hours. First quest that we are able to trigger is the Golden Bird. The catch is that we need to kill a unique monster which will drop a jade figurine. My encounter happened to be a 10-minute walk from the town. After obtaining the figurine we have to go back to the Deckard, who in turn tells us to go to Meshiv, who in turn tells us to go back to Deckard. Riveting gameplay, I know. I mean, I really shallowed what is being done here, as we are basically trading items between those two NPCs. At least the reward for this quest is semi-decent. We are given a potion of life which basically adds 20 HP permanently to our stats sheet. Thankfully, completion of this quest prompts both Deckard and Hratli to give us the next two. Blade of the Old Religion, as second quest is called, is around a 15 to 20 minutes jog from the town. This might give you the idea of the scale of the map. As we arrive at the Flare jungle, we stumble onto a small village of aforementioned flayers. The fetishes, which is an interchangeable name of flayers, are most likely based on a real-world tribe of pygmies. Short people who use blow darts to hunt for their prey. In the village we can find Gitbin, an ancient blade artifact that would help reinforce the spell of Hratli that wards off evil from the docks of Kurast, where remnants of Kurast citizens took refuge. Bringing it back to the docks completes the second quest. Third quest, the Kalim's Will, is an elaborate way of torturing the player. We are tasked with retrieving 4 separate items: Kalim's Eye, Kalim's Brain, Kalim's Heart, and Kalim's Flail. Dude gotta be absent-minded as fuck. Each item is located in the different part of the map. To make things even more difficult, the first item is located in a spider's cave, but not the spider's cave that is right outside of the town. Nah, mate. You gotta work for the reward. I ain't gonna lie if I say that it took me literally over half an hour to locate the damn cave. The brain can be found in the Flare dungeon on the 3rd floor. Finding it is also not an easy task, as there are 2 dungeons in the area. The heart is located in... Sewer! Yes, my loves, 2nd sewer level in this game. Literally epitome of 2000s gaming. There are 4 separate entrances, and it doesn't really matter which one you take, as all 4 are exactly the same distance from the center, where the entrance to floor -2 of sewers can be found. The flail, fortunately, is located in the same place where quest number 4 takes place. Yay, we're killing 2 birds with 1 stone. Everything that makes this act shorter for me is a godsend. After killing the council members in Travnikal, who are the target of the 4th quest, we loot the flail. Taking it back to the heraldic cube and combining all 4 elements grants us a unique item called Kalim's Wheel, which you can use for about 20 seconds before you have to use it on a compelling orb in the same location where you killed the console. After interacting with the orb, the item is destroyed. But let's not cry over the spilled milk, as it unlocks the entrance to the final location of the act where Mephisto resides. After obligatory trip through a multi-floor dungeon, we arrive in a pretty peculiar basement. Dude has a sophisticated taste, as in the center of the room he has a pool filled with blood and bones that is crowned with a demonic red portal. After dealing with the Skelly Bro and obligatory visit in the town to sell all the shit that he dropped, we are treated with yet another cutscene. Mortal Hero finally assumes the final form of Diablo himself. As a side note, I think that Blizzard always could into cutscenes. Beginning with Warcraft through StarCraft and Diablo, ending with World of Warcraft. Almost all of the cinematics they have produced are masterpieces.
Arise, Diablo, Lord of Terror. You are the harbinger of our return, Diablo. Send forth your terror into hell.
And here we are. Pandemonium Fortress lies before us. Act 4 is the shortest of them all and was the last act prior to expansion. Shortest because it has only 3 quests, and since we know about the structure of the acts, the last quest is about defeating a boss, which in this case is the title's villain, Diablo himself. After arriving in the last bastion of light, Tyrael thanks us for saving him in Tal Rasha's chamber. But there is no time for rest, as he asks us for a favor. One of his lieutenants, Isual, has been captured by Lords of Hell and now is trapped in a demonic vessel. We are tasked with freeing his spirit from this realm. Just as a disclaimer, to omit the issues with fantastic Blizzard servers, I tried to copy my character one-to-one with usage of Save Editor, so I could play in an offline mode, but to no success. So we are stuck with a footage of some more rubber banding, though as it was recorded on Monday, the effects are lesser. Act 4 is where the effects of lacking in resistances start to have dire consequences. Despite the fact that I have played on a normal difficulty, from this point onward I had my cheeks clapped several times. Defeating Isual releases his soul from the demonic vessel and frees him for good. The quest itself has a decent plot twist. We learn from the freed soul that Isual has actually helped prime evils such as Diablo, letting them know about the soulstones which were used to previously imprison aforementioned evils. But for the hardcore gamers, the most important is the reward. Player is granted 2 free skill points for completing the quest. If we talk to Deckard after coming back to the town, we are told that the Mephisto's soulstone which we have picked up in Act 2, or were given by Deckard if we didn't loot it, has to be destroyed as it is corrupted and no longer functions as a prison for Mephisto himself. The only place to vanquish the fell stone is the Hellforge, located in the River of Flame. Upon arriving at our destination, we are greeted by a host of demons and a unique boss, Hephaestus. The boss seems to share the sprite, or model in case of remaster, with the smith from Act 1. After clearing the vicinity, we, as the brave adventurers, have to place the soulstone on the anvil and destroy it once and for good. This leads us to the grand finale of the baseline game. After finishing lesser quests, we venture to the chamber of the Lord of Terror himself. Before facing the antagonist of the game, we have to first break 4 seals scattered on the sides of the main arena. Interacting with the seals spawn packs of mobs with mini-bosses commanding them. As I stated before, lack of resistances really kicked me hard in here, as I have died multiple times. After interacting with all 4 seals, the screen trembles and we can hear Diablo's voice in the distance. The fight itself, at least for my character, was a slog. I was fighting not only against Diablo, low resistances, but also against netcode and servers itself. Defeating Diablo would end the game if we didn't have an expansion or we didn't play the remaster, but returning to Tyrael we are told about the World Stone, an object of immense power that has been used to create the Sanctuary, which is the in-game name of the world that we inhabit. Now the Heart of Creation is in danger as Diablo's older brother Baal has set his eye on it.
Well, it seems your terms are not acceptable.
After a quick chat with Archangel Tyrael, we step through the red portal that he opens and we arrive at the barbarian city of Harrogath, which unfortunately is besieged by demonic legions of Baal. Our goal as the brave adventurer is to put an end to the invasion and vanquish the last prime evil present in the sanctuary. The first order of business is defeating the most powerful of Baal's general who is responsible for the siege, Shank the Overseer. Killing the demon proves our worth among the people of Harrogath and grants us a neat reward. We can socket one item of our choosing after talking to Larzuk. After proving ourselves, the next quest is given to us by Qualkech, the barbarian clan's master-at-arms. He asks us to free his men, who has been captured during the initial clash of demonic forces and barbarians. After freeing 15 warriors from their cages, we are granted 3 runes, which if we didn't play the remaster would only appear at this point of the game. Those alternatives to the gems have been introduced in the Lord of Destruction expansion pack. Completing this quest also allows us to recruit barbarian warriors as new mercenaries. Note that Act 4 did not have its own mercenaries. You might have noticed that I'm skimming through the quests quicker than previously, but truth be told, quests in Act 5 are more straight to the point than the quests from Acts prior. Prison of Ice is our task at hand now. After talking to Mala, we are asked to find Anya, the missing daughter of late Elder Oust, who we do not meet in person as he has been slain by Baal. Anya herself has been brought up to be leader of her people. She has gone missing not long before we arrive in the city. Though not prosecuted, the main suspect in this case is town's vendor Nihlatak, who can be interacted with to gamble for items. We venture to ice-covered glacier caves of Crystalline Passage, until we arrive at Frozen River, where we find Anya frozen into an icicle and guarded by a monster named Frozenstein. I will let that reference slide. At the moment, there is nothing we can do to free her from her unfortunate prison. We have to go back to Harrogath and consult the situation with Mala, who brews a special potion to thaw and free Anya. Arriving back at the city, we notice that the main culprit, Nihlatak, has gone missing, which can not be a coincidence. For our effort, we are granted an amazingly useful item, Scroll of Resistance, which adds 10% to all of our resistances. Considering that you can finish the game on 3 different difficulties, you get a total of plus 30% for all your resistances. As a result of granting Anya her freedom back, she opens a portal for us. The red portal takes us to Nihlatak's temple. You might have already figured out what's going on. The remaining elder, the traitor Nihlatak, has sided with Baal in exchange for his mercy. We are tasked to deliver the justice by slaying the elder. Unfortunately, this quest is when Blizzard servers have decided that their sphincters had had enough and just went fully loose. After dealing with the traitor, we are granted, at least in my humble opinion, the most useless special mechanic in the game. Anya can name any of the items you pass to her. Following the way to the Ariad summit, we are met by 3 sculptures of legendary barbarian warriors. Upon arriving, the quest log is updated with Rite of Passage, which is already a huge clue on what's about to happen. After interacting with the tablet that lies in between the 3 monuments, we start our trial by fire. We have to match in combat 3 legends of people in Harrogath: Madog the Guardian, Talik the Defender, and Korlik the Protector. Only after winning the duel are we deemed worthy of entering the Worldstone Keep, where Baal decided to reside. The quest itself rewards the player with a substantial amount of XP, usually resulting in a level up. And just like that, we have finished the penultimate quest of the whole game. So here we stand in front of the entrance to the Worldstone Keep. Hands weak, arms are heavy, Deckard's spaghetti. After painstakingly clearing a couple of levels, we arrive at what seems a surface of the Worldstone that lays behind Baal's back. Kinda sounds like Ballsack? Though we can see the Prime Evil himself, we can't attack him. First we have to face the challenges that he throws at us. Baal will send 5 waves of minions corresponding to the monster you have met on your journey through 5 different acts. After ripping and tearing through the packs of hellspawns, Baal runs to the Worldstone Chamber, where we will face him in a final battle. Though Diablo was a pain to defeat, the boss battle with Baal was way easier. I assume that it's because of the item upgrades and the Scroll of Resistances, but he did not kill me even once. Defeating him marks the end of the story, at least for me. After seeing the credits screen, you have an option to start the whole game again on higher difficulty levels, by many considered as the midpoint to starting the game for real. You made it through the story summary. I'm proud of you. Why don't you stay a while and listen? So, now when we have the story out of the way, I need to ask a fundamental question. Was Diablo 2 good? Is it still good? To answer those, we need to dissect the whole package into smaller bits. I was torn if I should talk about Diablo 2 as it is now, meaning remaster, or should I talk only about the OG or the complete package after 24 years of existence. Considering that nowadays the only way to play the OG game is to have the physical copy of the game, I decided on the third option. Diablo 2 Resurrected looks exactly like your brain remembers the OG Diablo. Just look at those shots. Would you say that the legacy settings is the game that you've played when you were younger? I wouldn't. The only difference that is pretty noticeable is change from 2D sprites to 2.5D models, or maybe even 3D models. I'm not really an expert on that. But truth be told, even the legacy settings hold up to this day. Even though I am looking at 2K display, the game is still decently readable. The hand-draw environments look pretty, despite some of the elements such as tents in Rock Camp standing out from the background. Magical effects, let it be from your character or the monsters that swarm you, still look pretty and distinguishable enough that you can tell what is going on your screen. Well, the same cannot be said about cutscenes, unfortunately. Although you can't really watch the original cutscenes, there are plenty of comparisons online. I will link one of them in the description of the video. Pre-rendered cinematics aged really badly, thus probably Blizzard's decision on remaking them with the new up-to-date technology. Although the clips look dated, they still retain a lot of charm. This might be caused by the nostalgia though. But putting nostalgia aside, some of those cutscenes are still the most memorable things from my childhood, back then when your brain added the details to your perception that weren't even there. To sum up this part, you probably won't have a chance to savor the original visuals, so don't worry too much about it, and enjoy the new, refreshing ones, as they are the treat for the eyes both in-game and cinematics. The topic of sound design will be way easier to digest, as nothing really changed in those 21 years between the release of the original game and the remaster. Of course, the sounds have bigger sample size to sound better on modern hardware, but down in the core this is still good old Diablo. In my opinion, Blizzard didn't really want to touch the soundscape, as so many sounds were heavily iconic and they were used as audio cues for different events in-game. For instance, even if someone would wake you up at 3 AM and played you a sound of a potion dropping, he would be easily able to identify what does this sound correspond to. I could provide you with multiple examples of such sound cues, but the video is already long enough and probably 90% of viewers have stopped watching it by the 5-minute mark. The soundtrack. Goddamn, the soundtrack. If you search YouTube for D2 soundtrack, you will see videos with hundreds of thousands of views and multitude of comments saying things such as "I am enjoying the OST on a surround system in dimly lit room," or "after 25 years I'm still listening." This is a statement in itself. Matthew Ellman, as he is the author of the soundtrack, did such an outstanding job capturing the atmosphere of the game that people are still listening to it 24 years later. Diablo's soundtrack is over 2 hours long, but I'm going to focus more on the 2 tracks called Rogue and Wilderness. The tune Rogue could be heard while resting in a rogue encampment. This masterpiece plucks strings of not only acoustic and electric guitars, but also the strings of your heart. The calm yet somewhat unnerving tune captures the atmosphere of a safe haven that is surrounded by yet to be discovered evils. Yes, I know I'm yapping a lot about nostalgic feelings, but this video is called Nostalgic Retrospective for a reason. Hearing the tune just paints a picture of late summer's afternoon in one of Warsaw's skyscrapers, sitting down next to my father in a room that's lit only by a desk lamp and a monitor itself, and just chilling while watching him play. Wilderness, on the other hand, is not calm and soothing anymore. This track makes you battle ready for what is it to come. You literally feel prepared for what lies ahead, and you already know that it is not gonna be a walk in the park. So, back to the question, was Diablo 2 good? Yeah. Is it still good? Yeah. Truth be told, you shouldn't have expected any other answer because of the title of this video. Was it a perfect game though? No, not at all. Does it stand out among its younger brothers? In my opinion, yes, and it stands proud. Diablo 3, despite being received rather well by some, has been considered too sugar-coated and having candy visuals. Don't get me wrong, Diablo 3 still has a healthy community that plays the game, unlike Diablo 4, which has been a flop since its release. But consider that, were there any controversies among players when D2 came out? I deliberately said among players, as the media has always been picky regarding Diablo. Some outlets have even reached with their statements that the game promotes satanism, but who cares though? Diablo 2 Resurrected has been somewhat panned by many due to the aged mechanics that so many love and come back to. I can see why that was happening, but then again, this is a nostalgic retrospective. I can also overlook some flaws and issues just because this is the first game that I remember seeing and being sucked into it. The younger generation of gamers is used to different standards of the industry, but for us, the boomer players' times of proper expansion packs, lack of microtransactions, quality products that have been crafted with care and attention to detail are the industry standards. So naturally, the more or less faithful remake of a game that has introduced so many of us to gaming is a godsend. I would like to linger for a moment on this statement, as it is a bit sad that one of the best products from Blizzard in recent years is a remake of a game that has been around for 21 years at the time of release. As you have noticed, I have a thing for Diablo 2, but not everything is as pristine as I have thought. There were some issues, mostly archaic systems, that I noticed during my playthrough. Things that I didn't pay attention to or did not bother me during the 2000s. Some are quality of life features, some are bygone design philosophies. And to be frank with both myself and you guys, I will try to point out things that cause Diablo 2 to be a flawed gem among productions of the past and today. The map layouts, especially of Act 2 and 3, were irritating. Enclosed and tight spaces contrasted by vast open plains of Act 2 did not fit me at all. Elongated river banks of Act 3, which were punishing you for sticking to only one side of the river by making you miss crucial locations or quest items, made me even more mad, as I was already pulling my hair out because of the lagging servers. Stamina, which as far as I'm concerned had been vaulted from the future installments, is a bit strange. Seems like it is an afterthought, an artificial problem that has been created to be resolved with stamina potions and shrines. I guess it was forced into the game, as most likely other ARPGs of that time had such a mechanic. Bottlenet servers, well, that's a story and a half in itself. I don't remember the OG game having such issues, though to be completely honest with you, I haven't played that much online back in the day. As one, I was too young, and two, I did not have a proper internet connection up until I was around 9 or 10 years old, so around 2004 or 5. On top of that, gatekeeping players from transferring or at least copying the character from online to offline mode is just a joke. To conclude this video, I still stand by the statement that Diablo 2 was and is a good game. It is a flawed yet beautiful gem panned from the river of excrements that is being poured by the publishers nowadays. It is a lighthouse built a long time ago that, despite passage of time, still shines bright on the coast of mediocrity. You might say that I'm biased due to my past experiences with the game and that I remember it fondly for what it was and not what it is. But the truth is that both original game and remaster are products of care and attention to details that have been handcrafted to cater to the needs and expectations of a broad group of players. And even though the remaster has been most likely commissioned by some higher up in Blizzard, people responsible for the production have done a tremendous job of preserving the feeling and vibe of the original. I think that this statement is strongly backed by many claims found throughout the internet saying that those graphics are basically what our brains have remembered Diablo 2 looked like. Would I recommend playing through Resurrected? Absolutely yes, but keep in mind that there are a lot of mechanics that have been widely accepted back in the day but now are outdated. Same for quality of life improvements that are not there even though you would expect them to be as a present day gamer. Will you like it? Most likely yes. Will it irritate you? For sure. Will you feel satisfaction after finishing the game? Absolutely, especially if you are into those kind of games. And I know that I haven't played through the whole game as I have finished the game on the normal difficulty, but for me, this is how I remember the game. Worry not though, as I plan to play through it on Hell and Inferno difficulties too in my own time. But for now, take care and thank you for watching. Until next time, my loves.